Good evening and welcome to another episode of The Caption Life, a podcast about how comics and pop culture impact life and society, and vice versa. Coming to you from the hidden basement in a lavish country manor outside of Houston, Texas, I'm Kevin.
And straight from Indianapolis, home of the Indy 500, I am Sean. And before we get started with this episode, please hit that subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And follow us on social media under the handle @CaptionLife on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit. And you can also find out more information about us and past episodes on our website at thecaptionedlife.com.
I'm hoping that my intro gave it away. Maybe just a hint a little bit about what we're going to be talking about on this episode. But who else lives in, or who else hangs out in the hidden basement of a lavish country manor than Batman?
Well, the X-Men.
That's true. I guess I didn't think that through. As Madden would say, apparently, I mean, if you had done your research.
Well, we are gonna.
We'll have another episode. We talk about the X-Men, but today we're talking about Batman.
Yep.
So Batman is one of the godfathers of comic book superheroes, and he's one of the most popular literary and film characters of all time. And so on this episode of the Caption Life podcast, we are going to give him his day, although his day was back in September.
Yeah. Which, I mean, if we had planned it right,
we could have done that.
Right. But I mean, we had some really good guests that we really wanted to get out there and everything. So we thought that was more important because we could celebrate Batman whenever we want, even though he has the day. It's not like we don't,
Right. And when Batman's like a cockroach. He lurks in the shadows. And when all of us are gone, he'll still be around.
Yep. That's exactly right. Hey, so to start off this episode, I thought I could give everybody some random facts about Batman. So I'm just going to list off some facts I did when I was kind of doing some quick research about, just interesting things that people may or may not know about Batman and the character that surrounds him.
Okay,
so the first one is, that Batman is currently known for his no-kill policy and his no-gun policy, where he does not kill any villains, right?
That is correct.
He actually used to kill people when he was first created.
Oh, really?
Yes, he killed the Joker in the very first issue.
Like the very first time that the Joker appears, he kills him?
Yeah, I think the Joker showed up in issue 1 and Batman killed him. He did have a gun. He killed people by kicking them in the neck and snapping their neck. He hanged somebody from a plane.
And people today talk about how comics are too dark. That was 1939.
Yes.
The world was a terrible place at the time because of the Great Depression. And we were at the prefaces of World War II.
Yep.
And Batman was just snapping people's necks.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that, violence, back then wasn't uncommon back then either, so, but yeah. So
maybe the problem today isn't Batman. Maybe that's just we've been saturated with it from so many other places.
Right.
Maybe we're even desensitized to Batman.
Right. Yeah, it could be. So, another random fact is that there's actually a course taught at the University of Victoria in Canada called The Science of Batman. Did you know that?
Yeah, no, I did not.
So apparently this person, E. Paul Zehr, and I think I'm pronouncing his name right, Zehr, teaches a class from the physics department or a science department. So it's not like a literature course that talks about the science. This is actually taught from a scientific point of view, where he talks about how the science of the person Batman and superheroes in general actually would work in real life and everything. So if you ever wanted to take a course about learning how Batman and what he can do is something that you can actually do in real life, you would take that course up in Canada. So
that's cool. I know that there are courses, or there are people who've written books and teach about the psychology of Batman, and other characters, like the psychology of Wolverine and whatnot. Both of them are classically tormented characters.
Right.
But it makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I'm sure it's a very popular course as well too, and I think it's it's something that we talked about as well too on this show is especially with Star Trek and a lot of the science fiction, which I mean comics definitely falls under science fiction, is that it's the intertwine between reality and fiction, and that fiction can inspire reality and vice versa. And I think this course would be a really great example of that.
That's what we talk about on this podcast.
I know, right? It's like
sick,
intentional,
like twist, bro.
Right. In 1996, Marvel and DC actually had a crossover where Batman and Wolverine was merged. Have you heard about this?
I actually just talked about this with Madden earlier today about Darkclaw.
Yes, that's who it is. You remember what the character's name was? His human name, non-hero name?
Oh no, I don't.
Logan Wayne.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yes, but yeah, it's Darkclaw. So it's Batman costume with the claws and everything like that. So it's like I need to try to see if I can track that down and find it somewhere. I would love to read that.
Madden brought it up when he was trying to like use a big fancy word. He was trying to use amalgam as a word, and he used it wrong. And then I was like, no, that means when you combine two things. And he was like, oh, you mean like Wolverine and Batman when they make Darkclaw? And I was like, exactly. I have taught you well, young Padawan.
Nice.
That's a deep cut for a 12-year-old.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
This fact, I know because we talked about this on the show before, and probably a lot of people know, but I think it's something that we definitely need to discuss more and talk about more and make sure that people are aware of this, especially when you watch some of the older shows and movies of Batman. So Bob Kane is the attributed creator of Batman. But until recently, we did not know, or at least they didn't give attribution to his partner, Bill Finger, who actually illustrated the foundation of what we know as Batman. So I think people might initially think like, well, maybe he just kind of like helped with it. No, like apparently Bob Kane kind of gave the general idea and had like a sketch, but Bill Finger actually redrew Batman to what we know him as today. So I guess Bob Kane's
instrumental in the process.
Exactly. Bob Kane's version was a little bit hokey. I guess if you saw that, you're just like, oh, that's kind of a weird look for it. But Bill Finger drew what Batman would look like. He's the one that came up with Gotham City and named him Bruce Wayne. So he actually created a lot of what we know about the foundation of Batman. But until recently, we didn't know that he had a role in that until I forget who the guy was, but there's a documentary called Batman and Bill. I think. Yeah.
So actually, I was going to mention that like we'll talk about the different versions of Batman, but by far my favorite Batman movie is Batman and Bill. It's a documentary from author Mark Tyler Nobleman, and it's on Hulu.
That's right. Yes.
It's a Hulu documentary. You can go on Hulu and you can watch it anytime.
Yep.
It's a phenomenal piece of like comics history and storytelling.
Yes.
And if you love the character Batman, it's essential like must watch.
Yes. And you'll notice in future DC movies now, you'll see that Bill Finger's name gets credit along with Bob Kane for the
true
character
story.
Batman.
And I may have mentioned this before, that before the movie came out, before Batman and Bill came out, when he was promoting his book, Mark Tyler Nobleman was doing a like school tour, and he came and spoke at the library on my campus, and people afterwards like, oh, we should have come got you. This guy was here talking about Batman and the secret history of Bill Finger. And I was like, why didn't you come get me? Like you had this thought now, like after he's gone,
right?
Like, I'm the resident expert. Like I wouldn't say maybe not in like my school, but maybe the entire school district for like comics nerddom. Like, yeah, you definitely should have contacted me. We can't be friends anymore if I'm going to be an afterthought like that.
Right?
I was hurt.
Next random fact: the name Gotham City was randomly selected from a phone book. So Bill Finger was going through, I think it was Bill Finger. It kept saying like the illustrator or the creator. So I'm assuming it's Bill Finger since we know that he's the one that came up with Gotham. But I guess he just randomly opened up a phone book, put his finger on a page, and it landed on a company called Gotham Jewelers. And so that's where he got the name from.
I got two things to add to that. Okay. So number one is it sounds like Bill Finger wrote the first issue of Batman the same way that I wrote the Mad Lib that we're going to play later. And then secondly, which I've always suspected that there was like a formula that you could just plug stuff into for superhero stories. And we're going to get to that. I had a lot of fun doing that, but we're going to get to that. Secondly, the word Gotham, and this is from the New York Public Library.org, NYPL.org. The name Gotham actually dates back to medieval England. And
Right.
English proverbs tell of a village called Gotham or Gotham, which means goat's town in Anglo-Saxon.
Oh.
And folk tales of the Middle Ages make Gotham out to be a village of simple-minded fools, perhaps because the goat is considered a foolish animal. So,
but that's not the reason why it was picked.
no. But like, it seems like that Batman protects a herd of goats.
Right.
He's the shepherd in the darkness. He's Batman.
Right. Now we just need a multiverse where there's a goat Batman.
There's a goat Batman.
Yeah, goat Batman, Bat Goat Man.
He sings like the beginning of the song instead of bum 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 bum. It's up on the hill lived a lonely goat herder. Yodelay.
I was thinking more of like the screaming goats, like bum bum bum.
That would be hilarious.
Next random fact. So you and I are both fans of Superman. I know you have a special place in heart for Superman, and I do too for different reasons. But did you know that Bruce Wayne actually owns the Daily Planet?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, apparently Wayne Entertainment owns Daily Planet, which makes sense because if you learn about Batman and Justice League, like Batman is, again, borderline socio-psychopath.
Oh, yes.
He just happens to be fighting for good, right? But he comes up with ways on how to stop everybody in Justice League in case they ever go rogue or go evil. So this actually would make sense that he would buy Daily Planet so he can probably, have easier access to Clark Kent and his world, basically, right?
Yeah. It reminds me of the scene at the end of the Justice League movie where he's like, oh, thanks for getting the house back. Or how'd you do that? And he's like, oh, I bought the bank.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's a bit of an overkill, Bruce Wayne. Like, the bank probably cost hundreds of millions or maybe even billions of dollars. The loan on that house was probably a few $100,000 at most.
Yeah. But I mean, in his world, it probably was easier just to buy it than to have to go through multiple people just to get that. Right.
Yeah. He's like, why hire a real estate agent when I could just go to the top?
Right. Hey, his superpower is that he's rich. So
that's right.
And then the last fact, and apparently an economist did the math to figure this out. To be Batman, to have the Batcave, the Batmobile, all the suits and all the gadgets that Batman would have, just that alone, okay, it would cost you $300 million to have those things.
Okay.
And that is not including like the other stuff that goes along with being Bruce Wayne. So if you think about how rich he is, like he has just $300 million dedicated to fighting crime outside of his personal life there. So, yeah.
Well, he could always do like the Cowboys of the Old West would like sell their exploits for like the dime novels. Like he obviously Batman really sells, so he could just sell his exploit for comics and movies and make that back in no time.
Right.
I mean, the Dark Knight franchise grossed well over $1 billion. So,
that's how Jack Nicholson made his money off of Batman 1989. Is that he actually, instead of taking a salary, he said that he wanted 1% of the profits, including merchandise. And I think he made like almost $50 million.
Yeah, something like adjusted for inflation. It's so much more money now.
Yeah. So it was a smart move on Jack Nicholson's part.
Yep.
So those are your random Batman facts for this episode.
Those are some good Batman facts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Do you remember how it was that you were first introduced to Batman? We probably have a similar background.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it is. 1989, the Tim Burton, Michael Keaton movie.
Okay, so it's slightly different. For me, it's Batman. Yeah,
which I grew up watching that show. But I think I started watching that after I got introduced to Batman from the Tim Burton, Michael Keaton movie. So
yeah, I kind of remember back when I was a youngster, like I guess at that point it was like syndicated reruns, kind of like Gilligan's Island,
right?
And you had the TV with the two knobs. Yes. Like if you could get the UHF
channels,
the UHF channel,
yeah,
you could get that one, and they played a lot of the Batman reruns. So as a kid, I loved that that show as a wee youngster.
Yes.
And then of course, like when Batman 1989 came out, it was a game changer. I do kind of remember the controversy surrounding like what people were expecting and how different Batman was, because for the average fan, that was a much darker version of the Caped Crusader. Much darker so than the show that predated it by 20 years.
Right. And the movie based off of the 1966 show as well too, right?
Yeah.
So, well, and there was a lot of controversy about how people didn't think Michael Keaton was going to be a good Bruce Wayne Batman, but then when it came out, it made a lot of money and people were convinced. And I think it was unfounded, because at the time, Michael Keaton was really known to be a comedic actor. And he hadn't done a whole lot of serious stuff. And I think that's what people were worried about, is that it was going to be, you know, kind of like this weird, goofy movie, but ended up being a very serious movie.
Like previously, the previous film that Tim Burton and he did together was Beetlejuice. And we should do a podcast on this topic at some point. Yeah. Like movies that people like that I just don't get, or we just don't get. Beetlejuice is one of them. It's a beloved cult classic movie. Right. And Madden and I watched it on the plane back from Indiana when we came to visit you in July. And it's very short. It's much shorter than I thought it was. It's like 80 something minutes long. Right. And number two, it seems like there are whole chunks of the plot that were like completely left out of it. And Michael Keaton plays the title character, who doesn't show up until halfway through the movie. And he's really a supporting character, like at best.
Right. Yep.
And I would have, if I was a movie exec at the time, I would have been freaked out that this is who you wanted to play Batman.
Right. Right. And I think that's how a lot of people felt. And, you know, thankfully they were proven wrong. And now it's like everybody's like, you know, Michael Keaton's like one of the best Batman that we've had, you know?
Yeah, and they're clamoring for his return in the Flash movie. People are super excited about that.
Yes. Which, by the way, I really hope, I don't know if they'll do this, but I'm really hoping that in the Flash movie, when they bring Michael Keaton back as Bruce Wayne, that they're setting up for him to potentially be a mentor for Terry McGinnis, who plays Batman in the Batman Beyond animated series.
We'll get a Batman Beyond.
I hope so. I love that. I love that show. I thought it was just a great show. So
hopefully we won't get the Batman Beyond where Batman is really Terry's father. Like they can omit that part. We discussed that in a previous episode of the podcast. That's so convoluted. We don't need that. We don't need that in our Bat lives.
That must have been a comic though, because I don't think that's how it was in the cartoon show, unless they like retconned it. Because I think in the first episode.
Oh, you know what I'm thinking? I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Okay. It wasn't a comic. This was another conversation that I had with my other super dorky life partner, and that's Madden. But he was telling me that Bruce was really Terry's father, and it was like some convoluted storyline that Amanda Waller used Batman's DNA to create a clone, and it's complicated. I hope it's not really canon.
Right.
But because the dynamic that the two had on the animated show was good, I don't think we need to ruin it by like, surprise, I'm your secret dad.
Right. Yeah. No, I think, I agree. So, but yeah, I know that's how I got introduced to Batman, was 1989 Batman. And I remember that vividly because I remember there's a scene in that movie where Batman takes like the two villains and headbutts them. And I remember as a kid, like, you know, it was a really cool scene how they set that up. Like it made it in the trailer too. And I remember as a kindergartner on the playground, we would pretend to play like Batman superheroes. I would pretend to be Batman, and I would do that to some of my friends.
And you were like in second grade, you were already 5'1", so you towered over the top of them. You were just smashing skulls out on the playground between between tetherball and slide time.
Yeah. So I only did that once, but I remember I got in trouble for it and I felt bad about that and everything because I was just like, it looked so cool in the movie. I didn't really think about how it would be painful.
And you grew up to be Bane. So
yes, exactly.
Weird twist.
Yep. So you were introduced with the 1966 TV series.
Yes, but we've talked about the golden age of the late 80s when it came to these movies with Superman 4 and Batman and whatnot. But it was definitely a big part of like what made me a comic book and superhero fan when I was a kid. I will say that I'm probably I've got a lighthearted soul, so Batman has not always been my jam, and I don't think it was in 1989. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool, it's Batman, but it's kind of dark, especially for like at the time I was 7. So I don't know that it had like a huge impact on me, but Batman as a character, like as I grew up, I do love reading the Batman stories, especially when he's like the detective Batman.
Right.
And then of course the mid 90s, like the best Batman, the mid 90s animated Batman the animated series was just to me like it was just the best version of well, I guess it's the Batman that I liked the most. I mean, you can argue what the best version is, but like to me,
it's iconic. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, I don't like that they tried to put this man with no superpowers in charge of saving the world. That's BS. Okay. Give him small scale stakes. That's why the Dark Knight trilogy is so good. The stakes are a lot lower. The impact of him is not much more than like Gotham. Like he's got to save Gotham. Right. When Batman is at his best when he's trying to save Gotham. We don't need him trying to save the world entirely.
Although, I mean, he's an intellectual genius, so it makes sense why he would do that. And what's really weird is like he's almost like an anti-hero. No, almost. Yeah.
I'm gonna stop you. Like if Clark Kent is like, hey, I've got to go save the world, I'll be back later, that's fine. He should not call Batman, you want to help out on this? He needs to call Batman. He's like, hey man, I'm stuck on this Sudoku puzzle. Okay. If he's that smart,
but Batman's a strategist though. Like that's the thing. Like Superman, I've never seen a story where he is like thinking ahead so much that he's like a strategist, right? Okay, like he is the muscle.
He just punches his way out of it.
He does. I mean, he is like indestructible, right? But I've never seen him where he comes up with this grand plan. Whereas with Batman, he's always like 5 steps ahead of everything, So like, I think they need him because he's the one that can strategize and make things happen. Whereas Superman's like, is more of the muscle.
Yes. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm playing devil's advocate because I love it. I love it when the two of them team up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but yeah, I agree. Like the animated series though, I think it just ends up being iconic because it does a lot of things. Like when you watch the series, it emulates the Tim Burton's Batman universe because Tim Burton's Batman universe or let me hit the marker there. So the Tim Burton movie Batman Returns has this really interesting dynamic where there's a lot of like influences from the 1930s and 1940s in terms of style.
Yeah, like the Art Deco style.
Right. Yeah. And it seems like, it almost has a Gothic tie into it where it combines a lot of different styles that works really well. And the animated series like kept to the point of like the art that's drawn is very reflective of that. The music. The cars
look mid-century cars, and the music is very much the same. It's the same Danny Elfman, the theme, the bum 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 bum.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think everybody, when they think about Batman, they can't not think about the animated series because it's just done so much for that universe.
I'm disappointed every time I watch a Batman movie now where they don't try to work that
angle in. Yeah,
that just the song. Just play it as part. Just to play it as part of the part of the score.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think what's really fascinating about the animated series is that it gave us one of the iconic characters that we have now that wasn't in the comics.
That's
And
correct.
that is Harley Quinn.
Sweet.
And so I think that's what's really fascinating is that this is something that someone came up with that wasn't part of the comics. And now it's like, people can't imagine a world of Batman without Harley Quinn in it, So I think it tells you a lot about the success of that show that we have now an iconic character that shows up in multiple DC movies and comics and has her own line of comics and things like that now too. So, yeah.
So we kind of hinted at I kind of hinted at like what my favorite Batman is. But let's talk favorite Batman stuff.
Yeah.
So I mentioned the movie Batman and Bill was my favorite Batman movie, but what is your favorite film? Or well, first let's do this. We asked people on Reddit some of these questions too, right? So we'll talk about ours, and we'll see what the masses came back with too.
Right. Yeah.
So, but first, what is your favorite film TV version of Batman?
Gosh, it's really hard. I'll have to say it comes down to two.
Okay.
For two different reasons. One is, and I'm sure, this has a lot of different feelings, but The Dark Knight, I thought was probably one of the greatest Batman movies that's been made for a number of reasons. Like I know everyone will point to Heath Ledger as a Joker was just so great. And I will say that is definitely true. And I would add on to that I think what was really interesting is not just Heath Ledger's character, but the writing of it is that I remember watching that movie. I was like, this is something that could actually happen in real life. It's not like a superhero movie where like, there's these things that are happening that's like, oh, it's really cool, but it'd be really difficult to pull off in real life. Like that whole movie, you're just watching it. You're just like, this is stuff that somebody, if they went maniacal enough, could actually do in real life. And so I thought it was just really an interesting approach to the characters in the movie, that it was something that you could really relate to and almost like kind of get you worried and stay up at night because you're just like, what if this did happen, but I thought they did a really good job of writing it. There's a lot of great mystery. I think they really kept to the characters really well. So I love that movie, but the other one that's really up there as well too is Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
Okay. Yeah. And so like I was going to mention I've already mentioned that the animated series is my favorite. And Mask of the Phantasm like being an offshoot of that, or I guess an official film release from the same continuity. Man, it's a great like Batman story. And I will say further than that, like I think that for me, like looking back on all of it is, I think what sets that Batman apart for me, because there's been a lot of people who've played Batman, Adam West, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney. George Clooney to me looked like the animated series Batman, but it's always been about Kevin Conroy's voice.
Right.
He sounds so sophisticated, not like rich, but he sounds so uniquely sophisticated as Bruce Wayne, but at the same time so like grizzled and broken, darker as Batman. Darker, yeah. I am the shadows. I am vengeance. I am the night. Yeah.
Well, what's fascinating is that if you listen to his voice in the show or whenever he shows up as Bruce Wayne in Batman, the voice is different in that when he's talking as Bruce Wayne, it has more of a lighter, softer voice to it. And then when he's Batman, it doesn't go down like a whole octave, but it does get lower. And so
Swear
I think,
to me.
not like that. I'll say that like no one has pulled off the voice really well, because Kristen Bale's whole, gruff thing, not great. Ben Affleck, even with, Snyder's voice modulator, I didn't think was a great voice. And I'll say I'm really excited about the Batman with Robert Pattinson. Like I think he'll actually do a really good job. But even that scene where he says, "I'm vengeance," I'm just like, it's not it doesn't have that gritty punch like Kevin Conroy can do, you know?
Yeah, he's gonna be like, "Hello, governor. I'm the Batman." That's
Right?
as best I can do. That's probably like Australian, to be honest with you.
Like,
But
do I dazzle you?
yeah, Batman, but with sparkles.
Right. So, but yeah, it's just Kevin Conroy just does a great job with the voice, and I mean that's why he's, you know, the one person that has played him in multiple shows and
video games across,
and he even shows up as Bruce Wayne in the episode of Batwoman in the CW shows crossover.
The big crossover event. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we know our favorite film and TV versions of Batman.
Yep.
Do we want to go into each one of these? Do we want to go into the Reddit responses and see what we got?
Yeah, let's.
Did anybody disagree with us and have a valid reason?
No, I think the only ones that people have said about the shows has been someone on Reddit named Sparky Pants. That's their username.
Probably a big fan of the Robert Pattinson Batman.
Maybe. I'm not sure. So, but the person said the animated show All Day Long, my favorite Bats now and forever, said that, it was the greatest cartoon ever, and that this person was 6 or 7 when it first came out, and just remember thinking this is the coolest thing I'd ever seen, which I think everybody thought that, right? Mm-hmm. We all loved it. Music was exciting. Action was exciting. The stories was exciting. I will say this, watching it now with my son, the first few episodes, there are some elements that you're just like, oh my gosh, this was, I don't want to say terrible, but like clearly more for younger kids, because there are some scenes where you're just like that was like a really long scene just for Batman to react to something, but as a kid, that was awesome. Right.
Yeah. Madden actually told me the other day that when he watches it on like HBO Max, he looks to see who directed the episode. Yeah. Because he's like, Paul Dini, all the Paul Dini episodes are really good. And then it was somebody else, but like, if it's not one of those two people, he's like, yeah, I'll skip it.
Nice. That's funny. He figured that out already.
Yeah.
Everything else on TV was just so bland in comparison, and that Robin was this person's first crush too. So,
okay, makes sense.
Let's see here, and then I think that might be it. In terms of favorite movie or show,
I always ping pong back and forth between which one is my favorite, the Batman the Animated Series or the X-Men Animated Series. But I will say it's a contributing factor to why people our age, like people like currently in their late 30s to early 40s, are probably, nothing against the people who survived the Great Depression and World War II, like the greatest generation. But I think we're neck and neck for no other reason that like we come from that sweet spot where like we have enough of a work ethic to make a difference, but we also we also knew enough about technology where we've been programming VCRs for like 3 decades when our parents couldn't. Right. And we had like literally the greatest animated TV shows to watch on Saturday morning.
Yep.
And not just like comic book like related, like 2 of the best animated shows ever to watch. Right. And like we're better people for it.
True. There's one show I do want to mention that has I want to say honorable mention for me, and it's a really new show, and it's not Batman focused, but it is a Batman world, and that's the HBO Max series Harley Quinn, which is an animated show. Mm-hmm. Have you watched this yet?
I have not gotten a chance to watch the Harley Quinn show.
So it is not kid friendly at all. It's definitely an adult show, but
my interest was piqued over the controversy about what Batman will or will not do to Catwoman, which that's a little bit too mature for, I think, this audience.
Yes, exactly. So if you're interested in knowing what we're talking about, feel free to like send us a message on social media, and we'll send you some links of articles talking about that. Yeah. But this show is just hilarious. It's just funny because what they do is they do a great job of kind of making fun of themselves in the Batman world and taking like a interesting like twist to some of the characters. So one of the characters that they have in there is Clayface, is one of Harley Quinn's like friends, part of her gang. And what's funny is that if you know the origin of Clayface, like he's an actor. And so they really like leaned into Clayface being an aspiring actor where he wants to be like the best actor in the world. And so whenever they're like setting him up for some sort of job or whatever, they're like, you need to turn into this person and, distract him, whatever. It's not as simple as that for him. He always has to think of like the backstory and why he's upset with this person. And
what's my motivation?
Exactly. Yeah.
I got you.
And then Bane, I mean, I love Bane, but what's really funny about this is that like the littlest thing will be an inconvenience to him. And then all of a sudden he just has like a really over the top reaction to it. So like, I think someone knocked over his coffee cup, his coffee mug by accident. And then his reaction to that was, I'm going to blow up the city.
That sounds a lot like me sometimes. I get triggered. I get triggered by the smallest things and have a massive overreaction.
So what's
I would probably love this show.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and I'll give you one scene that I think will interest you. So there's this episode where Clayface, Dr. Psycho, and King Shark, they all get part of the Legion of Doom, but they got downgraded to like as henchmen or goons. Mm-hmm. And so Bane enlists them to help him with something. And he said that we're going to kill, I think his name was like Dave or Todd or something like that. You find out that Dave is a coffee barista person at the Legion of Doom headquarters. And Bane goes and gets like a cappuccino from him every day. But he always puts Bang as his name, B-A-N-G. And Bane's always like, my name is Bane. Why don't you call me Bane? He's like, whatever, Bang. And so
that's why he plots to murder him.
Yeah. So he's like, so he goes to them. He's like, we're going to blow up Todd's house. And then you find out Joker's been paying Todd to do this to mess with Bane.
Yeah, it sounds like I would like this show a lot.
Yeah,
you should watch it. I would love to get in on that.
It is really good. It is funny. I will watch that show over and over again. So,
all right. Well, you've mentioned a few of these heavy hitters in your breakdown of the Harley Quinn show. Yep. So tell me, who is your favorite Batman villain?
I know when we talked about this, I have a hard time. I still have a hard time with it because I think it's just. There's so many that are really good for a lot of different reasons that I think it's just hard to pick one. Mm-hmm. But I gotta say, I would say the one that has been the most memorable for me has been Bane. And I'll tell you why. Like my history with that is that I remember vividly when I was in high school, I was at Half Price Books, and I remember I picked up the Nightfall comic where we first see Bane, and he's the one. That's the story where you see Bane actually breaks Batman's back by breaking it over his knee, basically, right? And I remember thinking like, just that whole artwork there was really intriguing. Then I read the synopsis. I remember thinking like, this sounds like a really good story. I never actually got around to reading it, but I just remember thinking like, this is actually really interesting. And like Bane was new, like it wasn't the traditional ones that you saw on the 1960s show or the ones that you think of like Joker, Riddler, Penguin, and Catwoman, and all that. And then, when The Dark Knight Rises came out and Tom Hardy played Bane, I thought he did such a phenomenal job. I mean, that's why I cosplay as Bane. I mean, not only was it simple, but I felt like it was just really a really good villain. But it's been more memorable for me because of that, because it kind of stood out as a new villain that when you read about him, like he has super strength, but he's also just as smart as Batman, if not a little bit more. So it's almost like he's like his equal in every way. So. And
the well-funded maniac thing is also like scary in our right. real world because Bane could very easily be an extremist, that exists in our society today.
Right.
I have a hard time with this question because I don't particularly love any one villain.
Right.
I do like I do like a lot of the stories where the villains, the rogues gallery plays a role, but they're not the actual villain. But I will say the one that the most memorable to me in a storyline, this is not my favorite comic book story, because we're going to touch on that next,
Mhm.
is the Court of Owls and Talon.
Yes.
And that was one of the books that I read probably, I don't know, 8-10 years ago when it 2012. So it's been almost 10 years.
Mhm.
But when I first started getting back into like reading comics, the Batman New 52 was something that I just picked up, like, just like, I guess I was like, oh, I'll check this out, and I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it.
Right.
And I read all the way through the first 3 like trades, like over the course of a weekend. Like I actually went back to the store and bought I guess I got the first 2 because I realized they were connected, but I went and got the third one because I was consuming it so fast.
Right.
And I love that. And to be honest with you, that the death of the family, and then when you circle back to Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's run, the Endgame story with the Joker, that's by far to me like my favorite Joker. But I don't really have a lot. I don't have a lot of love for any of the villains, mostly because a lot of them seem so far-fetched. And I like what we've done, like what they've done here in recent year, where they make them a little bit more grounded.
Right.
But like one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite comic book stories is like The Long Halloween, and none of the villains, that doesn't involve like the traditional like rogues gallery villains. So
right.
Yeah. Well,
So-
segue. Let's hear from the Redditors.
Yeah. So here's some of what our audience from Reddit had posted as some of their favorite villains. Let's see here. Which, by the way, I have to share that when I posted the questions, one person replied. I posted the images that had the questions on there, and I said, we're recording our episode. We want to hear your thoughts. One person posted, nah. So I thought it was great because I said we're definitely use this in the show now.
And it would have been better if he'd have been like, wait a second, you can hear our thoughts,
right? Yeah. Right. But I thought that was great, and clearly, like, this person was just being funny off it. So, let's see here. Favorite villain. This person said, this person is Nether Cole on Twitter. So NETHERCOLE. And this person said Clayface, mostly because of Batman the Animated Series and Arkham City, not to mention the fact that he's very visually interesting. So artists have a lot of creative freedom when drawing him. And I have to agree. I feel like if I was an artist, like, that is something that, you could always have a lot of creative freedom with that and do a great job with it. And I think that'd be every artist's like dream, is to be able to, kind of reshape a character and it still be the essence of that person in that regard. Right. So yeah, I definitely agree with Nether Cole about that. So I think that's actually, oh no, we have another one here. This person on Twitter is Bluer. I'm sorry. This person on Twitter is Blue Rasputin, BLUERASPUTIN. And he goes by Josh. And so Josh says that his favorite villain is probably Bane. So the same as mine. Favorite story so far, he's new to comics, is probably Hush. Oh, actually, that's his answer for his favorite comics, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But yeah, his favorite is Bane as well. He said that he's always enjoyed the way Bane can challenge Batman, not only his strength, but intellect. So that's what I said as well, too. And no other Batman villain has really been able to do that. So, but yeah, that's it.
Bane is one of those villains that like seems Batman's equal in terms of like physical strength. And he's stronger than Batman, so that makes up for ways where he may not be as smart as Batman. But here's the thing, like, one of the reasons why I love the animated series is because there are so many really bad Batman villains, or Batman villains that don't make much sense, or to be honest with you, don't seem very threatening.
Right.
That the animated series made legit like bad guys out of.
Right.
Like I'm thinking of like the Mad Hatter, and what's the guy that has the ventriloquist? Is it Scarface?
Oh yeah, no, I don't
the
think it's Scarface.
the
Gosh,
dumb
what is?
anyway, he's got a dummy, so he's
Mhm.
like Psycho. He only the dummy is the bad guy.
Is he just called the ventriloquist?
I don't know, but
We'll have to look that up. But yeah,
this seems
I know what
so
you're talking about.
obscure.
Yeah.
But you could, but I mean, think about it. You could see somebody snapping,
Yeah.
and losing mental capacity to where their main personality exists through the puppet, and
Right.
the person is just a host at that point. That's some
Right.
weird and scary stuff.
Right.
Now, Condiment Man. There's a famous episode of Batman the Animated Series with Condiment Man.
Right.
That was a reach, but you know,
I'll say Condiment Man and Kite Man are in Harley Quinn.
That's true.
And they do a great job of that. So another reason why you should watch it. Yeah.
You know, like the Man Bat. There's a lot of like B team roster villains that were featured in the animated series.
Right.
That just made for compelling stories.
Right.
Segue into stories. Your favorite Batman story, and I'll go first on this one. I'll give you a chance to reflect, dig deep.
Yeah.
As I mentioned already that I like to read Batman, but like I like Detective Batman better.
Right.
I also like Batman when he is paired with Superman. Not necessarily Justice League Batman, because Justice League Batman is always trying to steal the show and save the world. And look at me, I'm smarter than everybody, and I paid for this Watchtower space station kind of stuff. But Batman Public Enemies is actually the Superman and Batman run that Jeff Loeb and then Ed McGuinness did, and then the very next run with Michael Turner, where they introduced Supergirl into that continuity. That is far and away my favorite Batman.
Right.
I love the way that those stories juxtapose the two characters, like Batman's tormented, tortured upbringing, which in reality Batman really just does to himself. Like he could have gotten help and gotten over his parents' death, but he wakes, like they say, I woke up and chose violence today. That's Batman. Right. But you pair that with like Clark's more wholesome side.
Right.
And it's like they were meant to be like the best tag team duo of all time. Right. And it's just so well written. You were talking about how Batman is a tactician. Like one of my favorite moments in any comic of all time is in, I want to say it's number 4, Superman Batman issue number 4, where they're trying to break into a secure place, but they look like Superman and Batman. So they get into a fight with Hawkman and Shazam, and they steal their clothes. And so like when they break in, they look like Hawkman and Shazam, like they're in disguise. And it's just so, it's so great. I love that. I could wax poetically about that series for like a long time.
Right.
And never get tired of reading it or talking about it, but that's my favorite.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have not read that yet. And just like you, I grew up with Batman more in the media than the comics. I've read a few of the comics of Batman, but not nearly as enough as like the other ones. And so I started getting to reading the Batman comics within the past couple of years, and I've read a lot of them. I've read, Year One. I've read The Long Halloween. I just bought Hush because I've heard that was a really good one, so I'm planning on reading that. But there's 2 that I really enjoy that I can't really choose between 2 right now because of a couple of reasons. I'll explain that here. So before maybe this week, I would say that my favorite one is what we had talked about before, is Scott Snyder's and Greg Capullo's Batman run of like the City of Owls and Court of Owls, that whole run. Just because the story was written really well, where I feel like that version of Batman, we get a little bit of everything. That's great. Like, not only do we get the dark, broody Batman, but we also get to see his intellect play out, and we get to see him thinking through some things and
He's
kind of
working
revealing.
to solve a mystery. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like he's already had known about some of these things, and then he's just now revealing, what he's done with that information. But we also get like a really great sarcastic, dry sense of humor from him that we don't get to see. That is like really funny, and so it kind of makes it a little bit more human. That he's a very serious person, but he also has like that side where he wants to have that relationship with other people by being able to relate to them in that way, and not just always, I'm out to, get the criminals and that's it. And that's, if it's not about that, then I'm not interested in that. Like it really gives like more of a grounded humanistic side of him. I think the artwork by Greg Capullo is just fantastic as well too, because he does a lot of great things with the panels that when you look at it from a page view and the panel view, like it just does such a great job, like juxtaposing things. It's very great.
I know what you're talking about. My favorite thing, I think, is the "Get the hell out of my cave."
That is a good one. That's not the one I was thinking of. This is the one where,
well, he does like the whole like splash page spread too of like what the Bat Cave looks like. There's something that just looks like it takes hours and hours. And hours to do. They just put so much detail into it.
Yeah, because when you see like an overview shot of the Bat Cave, like you see a lot of things in there that if you go back multiple times, you would find something that you didn't catch the first time,
like the Easter eggs.
Yes, like all the different kinds of vehicles he has in there and the different artifacts from the villains and things like that. But no, this is more along the lines of like how he lined up some panels to where you see Batman like standing in front of a crime scene, and so you kind of see his head at the bottom of that panel, and then at the top of the panel below it lines up to kind of seem like it's a body, but it's two different scenes or shots that you're looking at. So that's been my favorite like run. Like that was one same thing. I couldn't put that down. But this week I picked up Batman 89.
Okay,
and Batman 89 is like just so great. The only issue I've had with it is that the artwork, they changed Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne's hair to be like really short on the sides and really curly on top, which is not his look at all in the movies. And he has gray. It looks like gray, like, size, almost like Mr. Fantastic style.
Gotcha.
So that kind of threw me off a little bit and a couple other things, but I mean, they're very minuscule. And I love the series because you kind of feel like you're exploring a world of the movie that you grew up with that you hadn't seen before. And we get to see more of Billy D. Williams, Harvey Dent. And then we're also going to see Marlon Wayans' Robin that didn't make it into Batman Returns.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So I feel like we get to explore this world that was a possibility that we hadn't seen. And now we're going to be able to see in the comics. So I've been very excited about that. So for me, it's those two comics. So
I will give one more alternative or one more honorable mention. And that is the Batman Earth One.
That is one I just bought as well too that I haven't read yet. So
it's those and I have the first two of them. I think there's a third one out now.
Yes.
But Batman Earth One is a really, really succinct and tightly told kind of like origin story and continuation of it. It's just a very, very good version. Like if you're familiar with Batman, it's going to have a lot of hallmarks in it. But it's also a really, really good story.
Right. And I think all the Earth One stories, like the reason why I got Batman Earth One is because I read Superman Earth One and it was so good. I'm like, I got to read the other one.
And coincidentally enough, I have Superman Earth One.
Yeah.
And have not gotten around to read it. And I'm ashamed of myself to say that.
It is really good. And I mean, honestly, I was talking to somebody about this on Twitter the other day. It's like, there's just so many comic stories now. It's hard to just keep up with them. So it's just, I don't feel bad as I used to anymore because I'm just like, oh man, I got to read that one. I'm like so behind. But like the more I look into it, it's just like there's so many stories that I'm just like, I will get there in time, and it's okay if I don't get there in time. So, all right. So our Reddit audience, here are some of their favorite comic stories that they shared with us. So this one is from Twitter handle Sodalis Apollo, Sodalisapollo. And this person said Batman Holy Terror is their favorite comic story. It's a great Elseworld story. That's his favorite. And it says that it's about Batman being born in 17th century England, where he's a priest and works alongside the church. And he really likes the costume in that story. So I'm like, I didn't know about that. So
I have to look that up. That sounds dope.
No, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I need to read that. Yeah. This person said, this person goes by Jedi. I asked what username they want us to say. And this person said, just call me Jedi. Like, I was like, all right, Jedi it is. So I love that. Yeah. Broken Bat is their favorite story. It's the first time that they saw Batman truly defeated. Bane just outmatched him in every way, and it looked hopeless until Azrael took the mantle, developed claws, and ripped Bane a new hole. Let's see here. What else? I think that actually might be it. Oh no, another one. We got another person that said they enjoyed Court of Owls, which is what we talked about. So this person goes by Small Fry 221 on Reddit.
What up, Small Fry?
Yeah, exactly. They said they love the design of the court, and the story is so interesting. So, and again, we agree, because that's why we've said this is one of our favorites. So, and I think that is it. So, but yeah, so all those are really good, and I definitely have to check out Holy Terror, because that just sounds really interesting. So
he's been around for 80 plus years at this point. So for somebody who has like adventures of, like, you know, we're not just talking about a book or a trilogy of stories. I mean, like Harry Potter's got what, six books, 7 movies. There's some spinoffs. Batman's
7 books, 8 movies. Yeah, 7
books, 8 movies. Batman's literally been around for 80 years, and there's just countless adventures to pull from.
Yep.
And we've shared our favorites, but I mentioned earlier that we were going to do something a little bit fun on here, and it's my theory that you can literally do Batman Mad Libs and create a really just great and powerful Batman story. So I've written a Batman story, and I'm going to allow you to fill in all of the important keywords, plot points, and whatnot. Right. And then I'm going to ask you for these words ahead of time, and then I'm going to fill them in, and I'm going to read the story to you. Are you ready for this?
Let's do it. Batman Mad Libs.
For the first thing I need from you is I need a sea creature.
A sea creature, like an
animal that comes from the ocean.
The Kraken.
Okay. I need a foreign country.
Tanzania.
I'm going to look this up, but Tanzania might be landlocked, so I don't know if it's going to make...
Oh, okay. So it's got to be a...
No, that's fine. It's fine. That makes it funnier.
Okay.
Okay. A Batman villain. Any Batman villain.
Let's do Condiment Man.
Okay.
Or is it Condiment King? Condiment King.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And villain. I need another villain.
Let's do Poison Ivy.
And I need a name of a theme park. A name of a theme park. Any theme park will do.
Let's do Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio.
And then I need a carnival snack. Something that you would buy at like a state fair.
Caramel corn.
Caramel corn.
Yes.
I need a color.
Green.
I need an absorbently large number. Just a huge number.
523,681,496 point.
Nope. No, I don't need a point. You already made that way more difficult than it needed to be.
You said it in an absorbently large number.
Your favorite soda.
Canada Dry's cranberry ginger ale.
I was hoping you would say Pepsi to make it easy on me, but okay. I need a number between 10 and 25.
13.
And then I need a Halloween costume that it would be scary to see a kid dressed as.
Kevin McAllister from Home Alone.
Okay. I need a famous action movie star.
Jason Statham.
I had a feeling you were going to say Jason
Really?
Statham. I could have just left that filled in. Give me a big international city.
Tokyo.
And give me a body part.
The index finger.
I need the year, make, and model of your first car.
I feel like that's a security question for.
All right. So
I will make one up. How's that sound?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's do 1975.
Note, your bank account is now empty.
Right. Let's do 1975 Pontiac Trans Am.
I need a type of stuffed animal. Just any mammal that would be like a children's toy.
A dog.
I need an office supply.
A 3-hole puncher.
I need an article of clothing.
A V-neck t-shirt.
The last two things that I need are your favorite breakfast food.
An egg and cheese omelet.
And a fast food restaurant.
Chick-fil-A.
And we are ready. Are you ready to hear your personalized Mad Lib Batman story?
Yes.
Okay. It was a dark and gloomy night in Gotham. It had rained earlier in the day, and the sour stench of rotting Kraken corpses, freshly delivered from a boat from Tanzania, lingered in the air above the docks in the harbor. Batman wasn't there for the Krakens, though. No. He lurked in the shadows, awaiting the arrival of the Condiment King. He had deduced that the villain was plotting to team up with Poison Ivy to blow up a Cedar Point theme park that had just opened in town. This would thrust the city into anarchy and chaos when the only supply of caramel corn would dry up. This would allow the nefarious duo to replace the city's caramel corn with their own brand, laced with a neurotoxin known only as green worm venom. This would ensure the people of Gotham became hooked on their product as they descended into madness, and the evildoers could watch their bank accounts soar to $523,681,496.
An oddly specific number.
Batman knew the explosives would be disguised as Canada Dry cranberry ginger ale cans being delivered to the amusement park via the harbor because these villains had because this twisted tag team had a sick sense of humor when it came to pop. Just as he was about to spring into action, he was surprised to see the arrival of 13 goons dressed as Kevin McAllister from Home Alone. The Dark Knight was going to have to fight his way through this lot before he could even get to the villains or the bombs.
I'm sorry. Now I'm just thinking of Batman in Home Alone.
Just beating the hell out of Kevin McAllister's. He sprung into action by knocking out the lights with his Batarang and then taking out the goons one by one using moves he learned from Jason Statham. One move called the Tokyo Chop proved particularly effective as Batman decimated his opponents by thrusting his fist into their index finger with vengeful fury. Just as he had rendered all the hired muscle incapacitated but not dead, because remember, Batman doesn't kill, he caught a glimpse of the villains attempting to flee in a 1975 Pontiac Trans Am. Not so fast, he quipped to himself, because they weren't close enough to hear, and although he thought the line was great, he felt stupid yelling it out. Before he knew it, they were driving at him full speed. With only a split second to think, he grabbed a soda bomb and he hurled it at the vehicle careening towards him. As the car burst into flames, Batman dove into a shipment of stuffed dogs to shield himself from the blast. He thought he would emerge from the pile victorious over his foes, but he was greeted with a swift punch to the jaw. "You'll have to do better than that," exclaimed Poison Ivy. "Yes, lucky for us, those soda bombs were really soft drinks," cackled the Condiment King. Disoriented, Some dad humor.
That's so bad. Yeah.
Disoriented, the Cape Crusader reached into his utility belt for a weapon, but the only equipment that remained was a 3-hole punch. Forced to improvise, he used what he had to charge the villains. With the swiftest of blows, he staggered the Condiment King just as Poison Ivy was leaping to attack. Batman was able to counter that attack by grabbing the villain by her V-neck t-shirt and flinging her into the still wobbly partner of crime. The crash of bodies sent both criminals into a pile of aches and groans as Batman stood over them victorious. Seems like your soda pop plot fizzled, boys. Nobody threatens Gotham on my watch. Later, Bruce Wayne sat in the Batcave after a long night of fighting crime and contemplated his needless use of hokey puns as he ate an egg and cheese omelet that he had picked up in the Chick-fil-A drive-thru on his way home. His cape still smelled of dead Krakens.
Nice. I think we have a Academy Award winning script right there.
That's we could pitch that tomorrow.
Right.
We could at least get an episode of Harley Quinn out of that.
Hell yeah, exactly. Especially since Poison Ivy and Condiment King are in there.
There you go. It's built in.
Yep.
So now you know the secret to writing like really good, successful comic stories. Now I say that having never actually written a successful comic story, I just in my brain, that's how it works.
Right. Nice.
So, and you know what? I love Batman and I wanted to do him justice. So that was what I came up with. So
yep. There you go.
Hey, that's going to do it for another episode of The Caption Life. We hope you stuck around for the end of that because I think that's probably the funniest part. We hope you enjoyed listening to us. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button on whatever major podcast platform you listen to us on. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Caption Life. And if you like what we're doing, give us a shout out, tag us in your posts. Please, we'd love to hear from you. I don't want to say we have fans, but there are definitely some people who like us and interact with us. So do that. We love that. For more info about us and all of our previous episodes, please visit thecaptionlife.com. Until next time, I guess same bat time, same bat channel.
Same shark repellent.
Yeah. Awesome.
Sweet.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.